What's going on, guys? 12:30 in the morning, West Coast time for Monday, the 24th of March, 2025. She must be obeyed is at it again. It is the zombie we were trying to see of Roseman, California. He's back again. Anyway, yeah. Can't get anything done at midnight. Because she wants my attention all the time in the bedroom. If I even try to lay down, she'll whine her ass off like crazy. I could have used her for probably for CB radio call signs or something like that. Citizen band. Guys, remember those old those machines? They're still around. 1960s technology, always occurring. Put in new technology. Actually, put in new gadgets, widgets, and what's nots in it. And it's still the same thing as you gotten back from 1960. Let's see the movies. British would do it. I know America did it with the Smoking, the Bandit, and also a few other movies prior to that. She must be obeyed. Is insistent. She must be obeyed. The dog is here. Madam Stress Case. That's what happens when you turn into an old senile, blind, nearly deaf, and screwed up brain when you get older and want attention around midnight. I was talking about CB radio. Something was hitting me last night. Actually, a few hours ago about it. I wanted to talk. An old call sign came to me. They always started out with the K's, and then, depending upon the region, they would add in their three letters. My region was the KBUA, and there was four numbers after that. I remember watching the movies of how the CB operators would use them, muzzling ground stations, not to mention on you know, trucks, cars, anywhere they can get their communications and information on the road and anything else. I remember the song came out, The Convoy, back in mid 70s. Song came out, movie came out after that. Trying to hype it up a bit. Back in England, there was another movie. I think Big Wheel and the Sounder, and they would use the CB radios of their era back in England. You wouldn't be able to see this one, but it's out there maybe somewhere, maybe on YouTube, hopefully. It's a cute family episode. Uh, how CB radios would be able to be assistant when you need the help the most. If you wanted to create hell and havoc, well, you got those movies back in the 70s that would show you how to do that. And the one that shot Reynolds out there, and Jerry and Sally. Smokey and the Bandit. Burt Reynolds as the Smokey. No, take that back. Jackie Gleason was the Smokey. Burt Reynolds was the Bandit. Jerry Reed was Snowman. Frog was Sally Field. The movies are out there. One was the hit. Two, three, crash and burn. I guess the studio still wanted to capture that magic that happened a while ago, but never did. But here's the thing: I heard talk like years afterwards how screwed up that the whole damn thing was. Comedy, yes, but was it actually real and legitimate for trucks and truckers to be that way? Not to mention law enforcement and how they would handle situations, and not to mention the language that they use on the damn thing. But yeah, they used the 10-4 codes all the time. They still do. As long as you remember what the 10 codes were, 10-10 on the side, that meant that you were basically a lurker. You're a troll. Or, not troll, just a lurker. Communication is a hell of a lot different than compared to now. It's not like I could pick up the phone and go, Breaker 19, Breaker 19, this is the sci-fi writer of San Fernando Valley. Anybody out there, come on back. In regular language, it's like, excuse me, with baking soda? My brother and I must have watched those movies dozens of times. He loved Jerry Reed. I liked his music too. He was cool. But watching him on there driving a truck, or trying to pretend he's driving a truck, I didn't know whether or not he was actually driving a damn truck or not. He actually knew what shifting was all about. My brother trained a long time ago with the shift, not with the automatic transmissions they've got. But he'd do it automatically, whatever the shift is. Me, I never did it. I couldn't. I wasn't comfortable behind the wheel anyway. Had an issue over that. Driving, not my thing. Sidekick, okay, I can do shotgun. I can do the radio if they need to. I can do monitor. I can keep myself busy that way. When we actually had other cars in the past, smaller ones, and my brother would actually install a CB on there, or actually try to have somebody install it, and the thing got fried. Whole electrical system, because it wasn't wired correctly. He had to get a new car. Oh, when we did get a car, put the CB in there, we were actually able to be able to broadcast, but a limited range. Depending on the energy that you've got, if you had a separate battery for the CB, it would put out more. If you had a special antenna, you'd get the better range, and the mic was more important as well. I mean, Radio Shack, when they were still open, there wasn't a Radio Shack around, but she was alive. She's just being a fuss budget right now. But for the amateurs, if they wanted to get a radio, start off in the field, that's where you go. Do you get your radio? I wanted to get a base station. I didn't want to get a big base station monster. Just get a small unit with an antenna on top of the house, and I'd be able to have my CB thing going on, right? You think that would be easy? Hell no. No. Yeah, first you get your 40 channel. They had special modifications on certain radios that were called sideband. That would go in between frequencies, and the language was something from, I don't know what you would call it. That's what they sounded like. Worst thing about it is when they're on the mobiles, we'd hear it on the radios. We would not on the CB radios, but we'd hear it on the AM FMs. We would also hear it on the television stations when they were bleeding through. They're all analog during those days, not digital like they are right now. I love that dog a great deal. And sometimes she really does get on my ass. That being said, So the equipment I picked out, I was a teenager at the time, didn't know a damn shit except with the movies I've seen. I had to go into the school library and check out a couple of books to get me up to speed what I needed. And one of them was dealing with CBs and how to register and what it all meant. And if there was a test, I had to take it. There was a form in there. I photocopied the book, mailed in the form with all the information that they were asking for. The book was dated in the 70s. I was going to high school in the 80s. An old book, but still, it was required. You couldn't operate a CB without a call station, without to call letters and numbers on it. Especially if you're going to be doing the base station. And I was. I converted a mobile, with a lot of help, into a base station. I had wiring for it. I had a power converter that channeled energy into the unit. It was basically translating the energy requirements for the radio to use. But then there was the antenna, a big, bulky tripod. Well, tri-wing anyway. Omnidirectionals. We took that down when we moved out of the house. Well, from one neighborhood to another neighborhood. And never did the CB again. I just moved the unit into my brother's car, and we got car antenna, magnetic mounting on it. We only we would receive, but our transmission sucked. We didn't have the energy necessary. Figured out when you were in a car, you had to have a separate battery for it to power it, and a special mic. So we had to shop around for them. We had usage out of it. I think I still have the damn radio. No, I gave it away to somebody else. They bought a new one about 20 years back. Before we moved out of the valley. Well, about 25 years ago. Before we moved out of the valley. And I still have his unit collecting dust. But I never did put it in anyone else's car. I may have to get the thing away, because there's no way in hell I'm going to be putting up an antenna out here. Size management, and anybody else wouldn't like it anyway. No, everything's digital. Anything analog, forget it. But it was fun during those days. Would you make up those call names of yourself? The handles, they'd call them. Of course, when you watched the old movies back in the 70s, in a way, it was teaching you of a different universe, of a different thing, a different hobby, whatever you want to call it those days. It was not like amateur radio, what they call ham operators. Those operators would require a lot of working knowledge about the equipment, radio frequencies, languages, a bunch of stuff. And it would be bouncing signals off from anything and everything. Just to get somebody out in Hawaii, make sure the atmospheric conditions are just right. You'd be able to get Hawaii, or maybe you'd be able to get Japan, or maybe all around the world. Signals would be bouncing off the ionosphere like crazy. And they'd draw a lot of power. There were specific call letters for that one, if I'm not mistaken. CQ. I never did get into amateur radio. It was just a lark using a CB radio for myself. Stuck at home, I wanted to do something. I wanted to talk to other people. I would go, KBUA, here's my numbers. This is the sci-fi writer of San Fernando Valley. Anybody out there, come on back. I'd do the breaker, whatever channel it was. Now, I had an issue regarding this one. When you are close to another operator, you're bleeding over everybody. I mean, you're bleeding on him, he's bleeding on you. And if you have mutual cooperation on how to use the radio correctly and at what times, you may be able to get enjoyment out of it. Not me. I had to compete. I had to switch to one channel to another channel to another channel to hopefully stay the hell away from this guy, because we were blasting out there. Now, this guy was from the same street I was from, just about 3 houses down. Yeah, I remembered his call name, War Eagle. I remembered him, still do. Back then, we were very obnoxious. Didn't like him very much. He didn't like me very much. He didn't care. But I had issues. That's the thing concerning about operating a radio station. You got to see how close you are going to be to the guy, or to anybody else for that matter, if you're going to be bleeding over everybody. Especially if you're dealing with a powerful transmitter in the house. I had not much of a powerful transmitter. I was just using the house current, going through an adapter, going into my unit, and then broadcasting out on a weak ass antenna. This guy's antenna was a hell of a lot larger, reaching out to places. So I could barely get anybody else I like to talk to anyway. When you're on the road, those radios are a lifeline. I know, we got sat phones, we got geosync satellites out there that can bounce our digital signals all over the place. But we're talking about analog, different thing altogether. Different radio frequencies that are subject to the conditions of the atmosphere. We're talking about radio waves dealing with magnetic. Meaning, if you had a CB radio and you're trying to broadcast out, if you were blocked by obstacles, the radio signals wouldn't go anywhere. They're basically just going in a flat. Ham stations, if I understood it correctly, they were shooting up and going through the magnetic sphere of the Earth. And with the weather conditions being in a certain way, those radio signals would be bouncing like crazy. But they'd be transmitted like crazy. Our digital situation is we would broadcast to a tower. The tower would be broadcasting to a transmitter. Transmitter goes up to the satellites, bouncing them up all over the damn place, coming back down to different transmitters and repeaters, and you'd be able to get the signal almost instantaneously. Analog wasn't even like that. Do I miss those days? It seems like we're using YouTube as the ham operator. It seems to me that our phones, where we're doing FaceTime, it's just communication away. But, yeah, I do miss it. I do miss it from time to time. Walkie-talkies. Lower level of analog radio. Broadcasting maybe 500 or 600 yards Maybe some of them were broadcasting a little further than that, maybe about a mile or 2 mile, depending on how upgraded the technology was and how powerful the transmitter was. It's depending on also the power source that you kept feeding into it, that you were able to get what you were going to broadcast out, and you'd be able to get the signals. Even on those radios, they overlapped. You could have two different radio types of shells, but they'd be doing the same action, maybe different frequencies, but they would also bleed over everybody. And it was told, if I kept monitoring it correctly on this one, probably not, but I just got to verify it more and more, that when you go on cruise ships, a lot of people try to bring radios on to keep track of the family. Well, sometimes the electronics will be interfering with the ship's machinery, but also the ship's electronics. So they really had a problem concerning about that. It's one thing about having a cell phone. The cell phone won't generate that kind of radio interference. But a portable walkie-talkie? Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. As fun as those things were, and believe me, I tried a few of them. Even a headset, wireless walkie-talkie. There was a lot of them out there with different models. Some of them was a kid version, which is this big blocky yellow monstrosity. I'd used it. Very short range, and nobody would be responding back to me. I used them for emergencies. Well, I got rid of the damn thing years ago. Didn't work very well. They still got walkie-talkies out there. They're still manufactured. But we also have sat phones. Sometimes I wonder about the technology we have these days. If the old stuff was better than the new stuff, I don't know. I'm still debating on that one. So, that being said, guys, she must be obeyed is demanding.